in the limelight of witnessing what is happening, obviously with Gaza, the destruction, chaos over there, destruction, chaos in Ukraine, like obviously we're seeing a lot of that in the news. I want to bring attention to a bit closer to home, in North Carolina, because North Carolina has had their own destruction with natural disasters. There was, we covered a bit on the FEMA scandal. We covered a lot on just the chaos and the malfeasance of the federal response, how Joe Biden, Kamala Harris just gave them the cold shoulder, which inevitably cost them a lot of votes in those swing states. I mean, you're snubbing them in an election year away from actual aid and assistance. That is by far, I think, the most disgusting thing you can do as part of administration, part of being a public servant, is that you're snubbing away from people in desperate need in your own country, in your own state. That's just by far just absolutely disgusting. So here's this guy here. This guy by the name of Brian Enton, who is the reporter for News Nation, as you see down below. And give credit to News Nation for at least covering this story. Because again, you don't see a lot of this being even mentioned at this point. They're not really bringing up stories or developing updates of what's happening in North Carolina, similar to the fact that they don't bring updates in East Palestine, Ohio, or updates on Maui, Hawaii, that had the wildfires, or any real big natural disasters that affect everyday people. It seems to be more focused on Donald Trump, more focused on, his controversial picks. They want to talk about Tulsi Gabbard being a Russian agent again, even though that was just a falsehood story, or RFK, diminishing the minds of true professionals in vaccine technology. Like, just the chaos that they bring to the table. But don't even mention this. So, this guy, Brian Enton, says, when I was in North Carolina talking to hurricane victims, many brought up an enormous guarded FEMA compound. It was hard to see in because of the guards and fencing, but we looked at it from a nearby hill. FEMA wrote me yesterday saying it was a temporary responder village. Now, to me, when they use the term responder village, like, I can't state the veracity of this because I'm not specifically there to witness it, but from my understanding of his reporting, using that verbiage, it seems more like FEMA built a camp for themselves than actually responding to the crisis. It seems like this is a shelter, this is an opportunity for them to come in, give themselves a bit of landmass, give themselves a bit of property so that they can look like, they're being responsible, but not actually being responsible to responding to the victims. That's what I get from Responder Village. But he goes into this report here, and again, credit to News Nation for covering this, and here's what he had to say about the ongoing situation.
Until you get down here on the ground and see it for yourself, it's hard to believe just how devastated this area still is. In Asheville, they still don't have drinkable water. In towns like Swannanoa, where we are, it's just still a total mess. 100,000 people, that's just the estimate, either had very badly damaged or destroyed homes. And we found coming here that many of them still have nowhere to go. Driving around the outskirts of Asheville, it's hard to decide where to even begin. There's just so much hurricane damage, literally everywhere you look. I got a message on X from a woman named Sarah. I want to show you. It says, "Hi, I'm in Swannanoa, North Carolina, one of the hardest hit towns. We lost our home due to the hurricane. We're getting barely any help."
Nice to meet you.
I met Sarah outside the trailer she's living in with her husband, 2 kids, 2 cats, and 2 dogs. Like almost everyone here, their home was destroyed and condemned, and they also lost their cars and their jobs.
Everybody that I've talked to says they're getting no help.
Their trailer was donated by a volunteer, not FEMA, and they have to pay for their own porta potty.
I had to rent this so that we would even be able to use the bathroom.
So you have to pay for that yourself?
Yes. Yeah, it's $130 a month to rent one.
Sarah's one hope was a U.S. Small Business Administration disaster loan. But then she got this voicemail.
This is a call from the U.S. Small Business Administration about your SBA disaster loan application. Due to a lapse in congressional funds, new loan offers will be delayed until Congress provides additional funding for the disaster loan program. We understand how frustrating this delay is.
What did you think when you heard that?
It's been, we already have it so rough, and to not be able to get the financial and, help that we need it's really awful.
Some just down the road have it even more awful, living in tents and small RVs with no power as winter approaches and temperatures now dip into the 30s.
There's times we don't get fresh meat because there's no way to keep it cold. Because you got to choose between heating the house with a generator, especially the ones who have kids, and keeping the food cold.
Wintertime's coming. These folks cannot be forgot about. Just because you don't see this on TV, it don't just go away. This is not going to go away for a long time. We got to get those folks out of those tents and in those FEMA campers. How's it going to happen?
A lot of the locals I've spoken to are particularly upset about a FEMA compound they say is much nicer than the donated trailers that they are staying in. It's hard to see, but this right here, I'm going to slow down, is the entrance to the compound. There's a lot of security. The public can't go in. We drove up onto a hill behind the compound for a better view, and you see how massive it is. A sea of government trailers. It's so organized and secure. So different from how the people we met are living here.
FEMA's not connecting with the county's not connecting with the state, and you got this big rat race.
Volunteers like combat veteran Robbie Ammons say housing is the biggest issue, and red tape. Families left in tents and RVs because of the permitting process, he says.
Next week, temperatures are going to start getting in the 30s at night. We're afraid of more hypothermia, folks that are living in the mountains. And there's probably going to be more bodies laying around if we don't start getting these people in some level of temporary housing.
The cold really is the big concern here, Elizabeth. That woman in the piece who played the voicemail, we reached out. She was trying to get that disaster loan. We reached out to the SBA. They said they did run out of money on October 15th. They're trying to work with Congress to get more funding. Her situation is desperate. She has to bundle her little kids up to take them out to that porta potty when they have to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. And she was offered some rental assistance from FEMA, but she says there's nowhere to rent. Everything is destroyed, or the few places are too expensive, or they won't take a bunch of kids and dogs and cats and the animals she has, and she doesn't want to move 2 hours away. So it's a real mess.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's upsetting just to see all that and to know that these people, who I'm sure I'm just, basing this off just this news report, are honest, good people. They're hardworking. They're tax-paying citizens. They're, just average working people in America. And they are being snubbed by the federal response, by FEMA, by people that are supposed to be responsible to enact any sort of measure to help people in need of a natural disaster. And the fact that they're, as the guy said earlier, the state doesn't know what's going on. FEMA doesn't know what's going on. There's disconnect. There's no communication between any of them or the people that are living in these trailers now. They're not getting response. They're not getting the funding. Even when Kamala Harris made that public address of, we're going to come in and give you $750. What does that get you? What does that get you? Oh, you might get a couple more months of renting a porta potty. Is that the money we're giving you? That's the snub money? That's the shut up money that the federal government, that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are going to give you in response to all this? As maybe you can rent a porta potty for another few months? And it angers me. It really does anger me. From a Canadian point of view, by the way. From a Canadian, I feel angered by this. Because this happens so many times. This happens so frequently when people are actually in critical danger, even in their own backyard, and their country, whether it being the United States or even in Canada. Look at the Jasper wildfires. People in desperate situations completely get ignored and snubbed and thrown under the bus by the responders that are supposed to be aiding these people. They have an obligation. They have a responsibility to aid to these people. And what are they doing? They're having their own little compound, little party, little shindig, and snubbing these people. Oh, we can't give you a loan. We don't have any money. We don't have any money. Congress doesn't have any money. We gotta wait for Congress to show up. Well, where's all the taxpaying dollars that people, put towards in a situation like this? Where's that rainy day fund? Oh, it probably went off to Ukraine. Probably went off to Israel. Probably went to some corporate subsidy. So that, hey, we can just bulldoze this area, tell these people to go, F off somewhere. And, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Did I forget to mention North Carolina has a large mineral wealth reserve, especially lithium? I mean, I don't want to bring that into detail because that's too much of a conspiracy. But it is something that you can't ignore that. So he goes on to say in this, FEMA told me they were unable to do an interview because they have limited availability due to their ongoing response. So, when asked to do an interview, they snubbed the reporter because there was too much to do. As you just saw the report there, FEMA basically just abandoning these people. But they did respond in an email. Now, I pulled up some of this email here. I'm not going to go through all of it because literally it is like reading a chat GPT message board. Like, it's just so fabricated. It's so obvious that they just don't care about this. But I want to read some of the questions that the reporter is asking FEMA. Like, for example, do you know how many people are homeless from Helene in Western North Carolina? That seems like a legit question. They say, please refer to the state for this information as they are better suited to assist you. Like I said, did AI just write up their answers? They don't even have a proper response that AI has to come up with that conclusion. Oh, just talk to the state. Well, the state doesn't know. Well, talk to FEMA. Well, FEMA doesn't know. Well, I guess no one knows. That's just unbelievably crazy. Here's another question. How many people are receiving assistance from FEMA, and what kind of assistance? Again, these are legit questions, and I give credit to News Nation for being, so far, the only newscast I have seen so far bring update on this. And they said, as of November 14th, this is what FEMA says, as of November 14th, FEMA has approved $231 million for more than 131,000 households and individuals for home repairs, rental assistance, and other needs assistance. FEMA has also obligated $203 million in public assistance funding in North Carolina to support community recovery. Now, it seems like something, but when you do the math on this, it's barely pennies. Like, they're just splitting hairs and putting them into their buckets. Considering the fact that, again, look at how much lucrative spending they put towards on Ukraine. Look at how much lucrative spending they spent towards on Israel. Look at how much lucrative spending they do for corporate subsidies. Look at how much spending they do. They gave $5 trillion to Wall Street when COVID happened, just like that. There was no need for Congress to come in and resort to figure out where the money's going to come from, just like that. Oh, we got to bail out Wall Street because a pandemic is coming. Meanwhile, a hurricane completely destroys town after town in multiple states. Here's some change. Go F off. That's FEMA's response. That's the money that's supposed to go towards this like a catastrophe like this, and being snubbed away. And now they're telling you there is no money. As they're telling you there is no money. But they don't tell you there's no money for bombing villages. There's no money for, they don't tell you there's no money for, overthrowing a government. There's lots of money for the military-industrial complex. There's lots of money for destruction and chaos. But there's no money to help you. Not until Congress comes in and we resort to some emergency action. Here's the other part of the email. Direct release, multifamily lease and repair, transportable temporary house. So this is the kind of categories that they're putting this assistance on, and they're allowing people to sign up and get approved for these loans. Like it's not like everyone's going to get it. It has to be approved by the state. It has to be approved by FEMA. And even if they get this funding, say if they got a check, how are they going to mail that check if their residence is gone? They don't have an address anymore. They've lost everything. Everything is destroyed. How exactly are you going to mail these people a check? How exactly are they going to get the funding that they need in desperation like this? And considering the coverage that we have already discussed on FEMA, how they destroy supplies that volunteers from different communities in North Carolina brought together, they destroyed it because it wasn't approved by FEMA. It wasn't approved by outlets so that corporations that supply assistance to places like Asheville, they get subsidies. They get tax write-offs. So they want to support those corporations, not the people, and destroy the already amount of supplies that they've already cultivated from volunteers. They want to arrest volunteers for helping people. That's what FEMA is doing to this. That's what FEMA is doing in a natural disaster reaction. This is the federal response to dire need citizens in America. And we've seen this so many times. And it upsets me as a Canadian to see this, to know that your tax dollars, all this money that's supposed to go towards these services to help these people at a time of need, and you think during an election year, this would be vital. You'd think this would be the utmost importance, even if it's for just political reasons. You would think that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris would come forward with this. No. God, no. They said, we'll get you $750. You guys just screw off and we'll go away. But Trump's the awful one. At least Trump went to North Carolina. At least Tulsi Gabbard went to North Carolina. Elon Musk was able to provide communications to people in North Carolina. What was the Democrats doing? What was the rest of Republicans doing on this? Absolutely nothing. Even Lindsey Graham turned a blind eye and said, well, Carolina, hurricane victims are bad though, but we got to spend that money on Israel. That's what my APEC handler told me. And where'd that money go to? So here's this. All that money that could have went to FEMA, all that taxpayer dollars, you're wondering where that money went to? According to Bricks News, United States has spent $183 billion. That's billion. $183 billion of taxpayer funds on Ukraine since the war with Russia began in 2020. So 2 years. $183 billion since 2022. And all for a sham proxy war to this actor guy pretending to be Rambo, pretending to be the new Winston Churchill, as people like to declare him. Even though he is a con artist, he is a sellout, he has just completely devastated his own people. Like, the death toll in Ukraine is over 1 million now. He is slaughtering entire populations and generations of Ukrainians for business practice. This proxy war was strictly for business. They want to overthrow Russia. They want to take apart. They want the Russian economy to collapse and sell it off to people like BlackRock and Vanguard to decimate on these territories and then sell off property. That's what they're doing to Ukraine right now. They're selling off farmland to BlackRock. They're selling off farmland to Vanguard. And this is all intact of the military-industrial complex and NATO alliance to fundamentally destroy more communities. It is unbelievable, folks. It is unbelievable, folks. And even just looking at the smug look of this guy, even look at the smug look at Volodymyr Zelensky, he's looking at that like, I am one lucky son of a bitch. I never had to lead. I just had to pretend to lead. I just go on media appearances with the t-shirts, do this kind of faux pas like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh, I'm here to save my people. We are going to do everything to take down Russia because Russia is a terrorist. You got to support my Nazis because we're going after the other Nazis. That's where your money went to. And it breaks my heart. It angers me so much that your hard-earned money, your tax dollars that you work endlessly to pay, that the government tells you this is to help invest in your communities, which is the whole point of paying taxes. The whole point of paying taxes is supposed to invest in your communities. They don't do any of that. They don't do any of that. They just pay for more devastation. And not only is that taxpayer money, that's also printed money on top of that, which is why you have high inflation. Which is why if you go to the grocery store, a pound of butter is close to $9. To the shock of Joe Scarborough. $9? My God! Is it made out of gold? What are they talking about? But that's just another sign that a corrupted federal government that's just so deeply entrenched in just the destruction of humanity, once again, proves that it would rather destroy communities and further divide its causes than actually support one another. And what gives me the most sympathy out of this is the fact that neighbors in North Carolina, people within places like Florida, people within these natural disaster-stricken areas are able to come together and support one another. That brings me the most joy. Not Kamala Harris. Not Kamala Harris. She wants you to vote for joy. This doesn't give me joy. This gives me anger. This gives me just absolute frustration. This makes me just absolutely just revolted against the federal government. But it gives me real sympathy and joy to know that there are people, regardless of who you vote for, regardless of what politics you support, what, social, economic ways you go towards, whether you support the LGBTQ or whatever, that people can come together in a time of need and support one another. And that's the thing that I want to take away from this, that as disgusting this looks, and it really is disgusting, people can come together for greatness for their communities at a time of need. Thank God for that.